LGBTQ, question mark, trans, queer, Christian, non-Christian, Muslim, Hindu, male, female, Democrat, Republican, independent, ethnicity, black, white, brown, red. We have these labels. Man, that's exhausting. And as those who are quote unquote believers or Christians, we are not so quick to carry that label or identify as aggressively as other people are. For whatever reason, we know that people have had bad experiences with Christians. We know that people may have different expectations of us or treat us differently if they know that we are willing to open our mouths and call ourselves Christians. But today I want to challenge you that even if you are a Christian and you think that's good enough and you keep that out of the workplace, keep it out of your private life, whatever you do, however you compartmentalize your life, I'd like to challenge you to be a better you by not only being Christian, but also choosing to become a disciple and choosing to participate as a part of church. That's really important because disciples are those who have decided, I'm going to adopt the teachings of someone else. I'm going to live my lifestyle according to the ways and teachings of someone else. And so as Christians, we will go to church, we'll listen to sermons, we'll adopt certain themes because they are inspirational. But the question is, are we willing to become disciples? Are we willing to develop a plan and a discipline where we regularly and systematically spend time studying and hearing and praying and growing and using, leaning on those teachings, exercising our faith? Are we willing to do that? And are we willing to take it another step by going and becoming part of church? A lot of people say they don't want to be part of organized religion. They're quote unquote spiritual. But I submit to you that if God made Jesus, his son, the head of the church, and his scriptures teach us that we are all parts of his body, not to just be a part of his body and to somehow eke our way into heaven, but to somehow be a part of a body that is giving and receiving, that is accomplishing his purposes in the earth. And that's what the church is supposed to do. Matthew chapter 6, we know that the church's role is to take the keys of the kingdom, and we're supposed to bind and loose certain activities, certain things in the earth so that it becomes in the earth like it is in heaven. It's not to have a religious group per se. It's not to be part of a religious institution per se, but it is for us who have his nature, those of us who have his life, who have his presence with us, to accomplish our purposes in the earth, to go to work and do a good job at work, to have friends and be good friends, and to have fun and to show people that he lives and that he cares about them and that he loves them. So that's what church is. That's what discipleship should lead us to. The challenge is the whole issue of humility and obedience. Jesus in Philippians chapter 2, it says he didn't consider who he was and where he was, but instead he emptied himself and he became in our form. He emptied himself and became in our form, and he was humble and obedient, and he was even obedient to the point that it cost him his life. And as a result of that, God made him the one who has a name that's above all other names and seated him at his right hand. Well, what does that mean for us? What does it mean for us to be humble and obey and submit ourselves? It means for us to deny the importance of ourselves in order to obey him and to accomplish his purposes. What does that look like? No matter how I feel, his purpose for me is that I feel differently. If he says I'm healed and his son was allowed to die and take a beating for my healing, that even though I hurt, even though I have issues, my humility says I am healed nonetheless. And so I will endeavor to be healed, to experience that healing, to walk in that healing. And so if he says that I am blessed and those who bless me are blessed, then it means that I'm going to try to live my life in a way that I am also showing that as well. For people who help me, for people who participate with me on projects at work, for people who go along with me or who work under me or who work over me, they wind up being blessed because they are somehow a blessing to me. And so as I consider today, and I'm thinking about this whole humility and obedience thing, It's not something that is a solo effort. It's not something that we can accomplish on our own by ourselves. It's something that we're supposed to accomplish in community with other believers. There ought to be people who can hold you accountable. Girl, you say you're a disciple, you're a believer. You can't be doing that. You can't do that. You can't rip off the company. You can't be taking stuff, to work on at home for your personal use. We have people in our lives, but we're also having people in our lives in the church context where we have joined together to say, let's make it in the earth like it is in heaven. And they are also holding us accountable there. And we're providing a part. We're supplying a part as the body of Christ, as they are providing parts as the body of Christ. And we're all receiving and we're all giving. And so that means that I can't stay at home every week. At some point, I have to interact physically, even though I love the online experience. And I've always thought that we should have a larger online church than we have an in-person church. And I think that we may be at that point right now. But I still have to consider the fact that we're not supposed to forsake the assembling of ourselves and come together as we get closer to the end. No, we ought to be coming together more often when we can, as opposed to coming together less often. And so I have gifts that I need to give to the body. I have gifts that I give to the world. There are certainly things that benefit me and my household, but the most important, significant gifts I have are spiritual gifts. And those gifts are gifts that I am supposed to be providing to the body. So I have to show up. I have to be in fellowship with people in person sometimes in order to make sure that I offer my gift. So we have this layer. We move from being just a Christian to becoming a disciple and becoming part of church as the true expression of who we are. We were created in his image and in his likeness. And as those who have his nature were in his likeness, we ought to be humbling ourselves. We ought to be obeying so that we are like Jesus in the sense that we will obey at all costs. And as a result of that, what happens is that people will know the love of God because they will see the love that we have one for another. We're supposed to love him with all of our strength, our mind, our emotions, and our heart. And then we're supposed to love our neighbors as ourselves. And as we're loving each other, that ought to be such an indicator to everyone else that they said, man, I know that they belong to him because I can tell by the way they treat each other, by the way they interact with each other, by the way they care for each other, how they look out for each other. And so the truth is that Jesus is Lord, and that gives us a foundation to start on. But as church, we have to be willing to stand on that truth and then be who we're supposed to be as those who are his disciples and as those who are church. Church being those who are called out to accomplish his purposes in the earth. We have to make sure that we give our gifts, that we don't stay as those who are solo actors, that we forsake the assembly, because it is our love that's going to make a difference. Our love one for another, which will be an expression or an indicator of our love for him and his love for other people. Now, this is the truth, the whole truth and nothing but the truth. And I hope that you'll be challenged this week, maybe even inspired, to move beyond the mere minimum of being a Christian and make the determination that you will become a disciple. And it takes time, it takes effort, it takes a plan, it takes discipline. But even as you become more and more a disciple, that you will also gather with others who are also called out to be church like you are, so that you not only accomplish your purposes for each other and in the body of Christ, but that you also accomplish his purposes in the world, so that the efforts that you undertake, the charities that you support, the camps that you fund are things that result in the church preaching the gospel and in making disciples. I hope this is a blessing to you, and I hope you'll consider the word as the truth, and then you will adopt it and live a lifestyle that honors the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Jesus is the truth. He is the way, the truth, and the life. And you can't go to the Father unless you go to him. So let's embrace the truth. I hope you have a blessed day, and I look forward to seeing you again here for Truth Tuesdays. God bless you.